The Ole Miss Rebels are entering their Nickelback era. We'll explain exactly what that means. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former staff member, actually, at Ole Miss. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network now, the number one sports podcast network in America. That's because of fans like you taking in content like this, and we can't be more happy about that. On today's show, we're going to be talking with Michael Katz of the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal about what went on in Pittsburgh earlier this week. We'll talk about the vitriol that's going on online, and is this the Ole Miss Nickelback era? We'll discuss all of that as well and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, and that is your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, but putting in the work, well, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, Michael. The question is this the Ole Miss Nickelback era? And this is what I mean by that. Obviously, they're a hugely popular team as far as how talented they are, but the level of vitriolic hate coming in at Ole Miss seems to be at an all-time high after the Trinidad Chambliss decision.
Yeah, I mean, the last, I would say 24 hours have been an interesting social experiment on social media of just, listen, man, I'm just doing my job and tweeting out what's happening during a court proceeding. And there are a lot of people who are angry with with me. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm literally just, come on, man, be mad at someone else, but not me. People mad about the situation. It's, yeah, it was a weird one. That was, I feel like I say this like once a year now. That was like one of the strangest days of my professional career. Just all of it. It was kind of bizarre. And I say that as someone, who just covered the Lane Kiffin stuff in November. I mean, this is what a few months it's been on the Ole Miss beat.
What was it like inside the room? Because we saw it on TV or we got tweets and all of that, and it all seemed weird. It was really interesting that you could see the body language of every major character involved pretty regularly. But what was it like for somebody in the room? And also, did the person coughing all day get help?
Let's start with that. I actually didn't notice it until I read it. And then I found the person, and it got really bad during the 90-minute final decision from the judge. And then I kept thinking about it for like that whole hour and a half. And I was like, man, this guy needs to just go outside for a bit. But it was interesting because, and credit to the Calhoun County Courthouse. It's a really nice facility. I know it's, I did not know Pittsburgh existed until a few weeks ago. It is a lovely facility. It's a small town, but it's it holds a good amount of people. I don't think there was anybody like waiting outside. But it started off like, I think a couple like local classes came in to watch it. Like people came in on school buses to just watch the proceedings. I guess that's an easy way to not have to teach the first couple hours of your school day. So I was like, man, like this is already like kind of odd. And then of course you have, the seats fill out, and then we're all trying to figure out if Trinidad's going to be there. And then we find out he is, then he walks in, and it turns out that they had us sitting in the juror box, which was also kind of weird. I'm like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be feeling this way right now. I'm not weighing anything, but and we were right next to Trinidad and his lawyers. So Tom Mars was like right in front of us and all of his lawyers. And so, yeah, reading body language was really interesting because you could tell when, if one side pushed back and the other side didn't like it, all you had to do was like quickly look at the lawyers, and they would just either be like this, or just rolling their eyes, or just like sighing deeply. It was odd. And then, I don't listen. I've covered, I've covered murder trials. I've covered some really serious stuff, and I don't think I've ever seen a 90-minute final quote unquote verdict. I mean, listen, nothing left to the imagination for sure. So yeah, I mean, it was all surreal. And then of course, Trinidad is there, and of course he's like the nicest dude ever. And so he's, he comes up to me and shakes my hand. I see his mom because I know his mom. He's signing footballs and taking pictures with people, like when the judge is in his chambers, like making his decision. Someone had like a Trinidad flag tie. He signed that. It was like, and again, credit to Trinidad. He's a really good sport during what I imagine was a really, really stressful day. But there were so many moments where I was like, what am I doing? Like, what is this?
We talked last week, and I think I mentioned my theory to you, being the fact that the NCAA wanted to take L's on this so they could go to Congress and whine. That was their whole strategy. Then they show up at a hearing that they're supposed to be taking seriously. They provide no evidence, no witnesses. They argue with the judge, and they leave early. I don't see how there's any way to not think that they were not taking this seriously.
Well, yeah, and then of course the statement that comes out is like, we need to take a bigger look at this from a larger standpoint, which kind of goes back to your theory of like this. They're trying to get this taken out of individual courts' hands. Yeah, I was stunned. I don't think I've ever seen no witnesses. That was pretty bizarre. Them declining.
Didn't even try to contradict.
No, and trying to. And declining to cross-examine Trinidad Chambliss's mom, who was a very big witness in this. I mean, they had 4, and they all served different purposes. She was a pretty big one, and they just were like, nope, we're not doing this. And then they left before the hearing, before the reading. And the judge made note of this. It was not only did they not necessarily the whole point here is that they willingly ignored evidence that Ole Miss provided that should have shown that he was incapacitated. I heard the term incapacitated 8 trillion times.
As long with contemporaries.
Yes, yeah.
That's the other word.
Yes, contemporaneous. Yes, that was a big one. So yeah, those are like my trigger words now. But yeah, and so it was not only did they, and the good faith argument came up. It's like, well, you're not really doing your job if you're not taking into account the things that you said you're going to take into account. And then there was the fact that they didn't bring in any experts or have any testimony from any professionals. They had an affidavit from somebody who wasn't a doctor, which is kind of a tough look. With all
talking about medical stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
With all due respect, if you're going to fight a doctor's note, you probably want to fight it with a doctor. So yeah, it was odd. It just kind of looked like, and I get it. They are fighting a lot of these battles right now. We're all trying to find the guy who did this. But it looked like a lot of going through the motions.
Yeah, their whole defense, I told my wife, there were 2 things. The first off, she came in here and she said, how is it? And I said, it appears the NCAA's defense is trust me, bro. And that was basically it. The whole thing is like, no, trust me, this was bad. And we were doing the right thing. And the other thing is she works at the courthouse in Bartow, Florida. And so whenever the judge started reading the thing, and I'm sitting here waiting to go, and she's like, you can probably go run a marathon right now. This is going to be a minute. And I was like, what? I was like, trust me, he wants to put all this stuff on the record so they can't be appealed. And I was like, oh, okay. And then whenever it finally got done and everything, we went live and all of that. But immediately immediately. One of the most petty things, the closest I've ever seen to the NCAA lashing out, was right before Trinidad took the stand in his hearing. The NCAA denied his reconsideration and put out the tweet. And then all of the people just piling on, oh, he didn't get it. The NCAA has some common sense and all of this. And I was like, what are y'all doing? They meet on Wednesday and Friday. That's when that stuff comes out. So if it's released on Thursday, this is them doing this for this reason. They know they're going to lose the case.
I actually, in one of my group texts, I think they knew I was at the courthouse, but I got a text that said, dude, I can't believe you got it denied. And I was like, dude, I assure you, this does not matter at all. This is not going to impact anything. Yeah, I mean, it's a last ditch power move. Yeah, congratulations, you won for a couple hours. Yeah, no, it was. It's funny you brought up that, like, your wife knew the decision was going to take a long time. I did not know that. I thought we were going to be out of there pretty fast. And so, like, I have my phone trying to take pictures and the video of, like, the moment, right? I have like 30 videos of when I thought was going to be like the actual decision. And it's literally just, it's a lot of background and that kind of stuff. So we got there eventually. Even he was like, don't worry, I only got 4 more pages. And I was just like, 4 more? Dude, it's been an hour and 20 minutes.
Serious, man.
But yeah, no, it was an experience.
All right, when we come back, we will talk to Michael all about the 2026 season now that Trinidad is available. All of that's coming up right after this. Hiring just isn't about finding somebody willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs, well, that's the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need and want. It saves time because you're spending less time and less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours has made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners to this show will get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. And the Winter Games are officially here. And if you are anything like us, you're locking in the events that you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years or so. And that is why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes a little bit of sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start really slow but somehow get really intense really fast. Speed skating races that are decided by mere inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. You already live your team every day. Now it's time to take it up a notch and go with the Everydayers Club. The Everydayers Club is a $5 a month or $50 a year club that you can get into that gives you ad-free Locked On Ole Miss podcast, members only Discord access, and even more, including, I think, merch. I'm not sure about that, but it's something you can check on. So go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or check out the link down in the show notes below to learn more. All right, Michael. Listen, in my opinion, this is what we have. We have Ole Miss with arguably the best quarterback in the country. Ole Miss with arguably the best running back in the country. Ole Miss with arguably the best kicker in the country. Players like William Eccles and Santarum Perkins and those guys coming back. They did a lot of work in the transfer portal to shore up that defense on the anticipation that Trinidad Chambliss was going to be back. This team has nearly as much talent as the 2024 team, but they don't have the expectation. It's weird.
Yeah, Trinidad actually brought that up during his when he was on the stand about how, last year was great, but I think we're actually better in 2026. It's already time when people are putting out the preseason All-American teams, which I think is just kind of bizarre. But ESPN had Kewan Lacy and Lucas Carneiro both on there. I was a little surprised to not see Will Eccles in the honorable mentions. I think Santarum was one of the honorable mentions. I'll give you one guess who the quarterback was.
Was it Trinidad?
Nope.
Oh, was it Sam Levitt?
Nope.
No, you're talking about Arch.
Yep.
Yeah,
we're doing that again.
We got to run that one back. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep. So, but I mean,
which by the way, that's the game of the year in the SEC right now. Ole Miss in Texas. Yeah.
So I chuckled at that, given everything that's happened the last couple of days. But I mean, you've got a quarterback who didn't get a full off season. It was still kind of learning the ropes of what Ole Miss does. And then he takes over and he ends up being one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And now you've got him fully acclimated to everything. You've got an offense that is going to be very similar, if not almost the same, to what he did last year. You've built up around him in terms of trying to support him in what he does. I don't know if there's a better backfield in the country than Trinidad and Kewan Lacy. I mean, you've got two top 5, 10 Heisman contenders right there. So I think I was seeing I think people had them as a top 15, top 20 team because they weren't sure what the Trinidad situation was. They've got to be top 10 now, right? I think that would be preposterous if they weren't.
Yeah, they have to be top 10. I think they're possibly top 5 because when you have the best player arguably in the country at 3 positions that are directly attributing to winning football games, and you get better on the defensive side of the ball, which they spent money so that in the secondary, it's a little bit more solid than it was. No offense to Wyatt Williams, but that's not the same dudes that are running around in the back end of that defense. And you got guys like O'Darian Clardy, who was actually got a little bit of a run out in the playoffs. I think this team has a chance to be really good, and they added some zero techs. Whenever you look at the defensive lineman out of Florida, and then Jaheim Otis is finally back at Ole Miss.
As the prophecy foretold.
Yes. It's basically at the point to where you can shift around and substitute more on that defensive line, which was a problem for Ole Miss at times this year.
Yeah, no, it's I think the conversation is probably going to be how do they manage the schedule, because the schedule obviously this year and the last couple of years has been, again, I know it's the SEC, maybe a little bit more forgiving than some SEC schedules. This is I think at least a tougher schedule as of right now. It's obviously they can still navigate it. But you mentioned Texas, obviously the LSU. That's no one's going to be watching that one. You've got some interesting matchups on there. That being said, if this team was able to navigate everything it went through, not just football stuff, but outside football stuff for an entire, probably really more than a year, and they can win 11 games. I know the schedule is a little different, but there's no reason they shouldn't be one of the top 12 teams. I mean, again, you've got depending who you ask, you have the best player in the country coming back. I mean, you can't. I know the NFL is a quarterback league, but a quarterback in college changes everything too, and he does things that you cannot coach. Having him back is just, I think it completely changes everything.
And the more the season's gone on, the more I watched him play. The early comparisons where they were comparing him to Baker Mayfield. By the end, you were like, "Oh yeah, I see that."
Yeah, no, I mean he can make something out of nothing when things break down. He is a really confident passer. Sometimes a little too confident. I think they'd probably like to see him keep the ball out of harm's way a little bit more. But for the most part, again, he threw 3 picks. I mean, he was pretty incredible there. He just understands, like, he understands the balance of how this offense. Yeah, like they want to throw the ball deep. But he knows when to take his shots and when not to, and when he does, he's on point. And he also can do those sort of intangible things of again, listen, you can have the best, an all-time great quarterback back there, but like how many guys can make that play that he made in the Sugar Bowl where he ran into his own end zone and ran back around and got through the first down? Like those are things you cannot coach, and I think that's what makes him so special.
Usually the guys that do that end up with a Heisman Trophy at some point.
That was a Heisman moment, just a little too late.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, when we come back, we'll continue to talk about Ole Miss football. We might get into a little bit of Ole Miss basketball, a little bit with Michael Katz of the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. So stick around for that. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who know there's more to the score than what's on the screen, Coach Yo has the Lady Rebels set for their biggest week in recent memory, and how they do along the way will go a long way towards whether or not they host a regional with the pavilion and all that. You want them to host a regional inside of that building. That's what it deserves. Coach Yo has this Ole Miss team at a position to where they can be in the conversation for that. They remind us what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, that night never quit. We put that same passion into every model at Mazda. Highlights make the reel. So what it took to get there, well, that makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. You can test drive a Mazda at your local Mazda dealership today, and I highly recommend you do that. All right, Michael, real quick, crazy, horrible week for Coach Yo and the Lady Rebs. It's 4 games in a week. It's not quite the 1899 Sewanee thing that everybody talks about, but it's basically 4 ranked teams just bang, 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 like with a day off in between. And it's going to go a long way, in my opinion, to Ole Miss basically being in the conversation to hosting a game.
Yeah, I don't know how many of those they have to win. I'm not a bracketologist, but this is a pretty pivotal stretch. You can't go over, obviously. Listen, that Tennessee game, I think that's a killer because you should have already had that game out of the way. That game was supposed to be 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And then LSU and South Carolina, and I think Kentucky's the first one on Sunday. Yeah, I mean it's brutal, but I know this team has had some. They should have beaten Alabama. I think that's one they're gonna kind of wish they hadn't let get away, because that would have been a ranked win that would have helped you before you get into this stretch. That being said, they're really good, kind of like Ole Miss has. A Trinidad, or football has a Trinidad Chambliss type. Ole Miss has a player who can take a game over in Cody McMahon. I mean, you have an All-American caliber player, and when you have someone like that, you're never out of a game. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, that's the next step for this program, is hosting. I thought they should have hosted last year. Obviously, it worked out for them, and they ended up going to the Sweet 16. But yeah, I think they're 20-5 right now. This is a really good team, but yeah, you got to get at least a couple of these. I think LSU would be huge. South Carolina, I think, is going to be really tough. It's not like it's out of the question, but if you can get Tennessee and LSU or Kentucky and Tennessee, just some combination. If you can get 2, I think you feel pretty good. If you get 3, you're a host.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Real quick, have you heard anything about spring practice at Ole Miss yet? They haven't put that out yet?
No, not yet. I did joke about it on Twitter that football season just ended, right as baseball literally starts today. But I imagine it's got to be in the next month, and I can't believe like we're already here for that. But you know what? At least we know who the quarterback is. No, we don't have to have that debate.
Yeah, and it would be interesting. And is there any hints that it might be a little bit more opened up than it has been buttoned up?
That's a really good question. I really don't know. And like, are they going to have a spring game? Are they going to do, what are they, what are they going to do? I truly have no idea. I do remember Pete told us, and this was a while ago, and I don't know if he meant this just for the playoff run or whether this was going forward for good. But he said he wanted to let his coordinators talk because he wanted to give them an opportunity to get head coaching jobs. I thought that was really cool. I don't know how often that is. I don't know what that looks like, but it's got to be better than once a year, right? Yeah. So hopefully, but yeah, it would. I think Pete, he might be more a little more unbuttoned. It's hard to tell, but that'd be nice for us. Spring ball can be just so, especially when you can't see anything. It would be nice to actually have some visuals.
All right. So what do you got going on at the Daily Journal right now, man?
All right. Well, obviously, the Trinidad Chambliss stuff is kind of the king right now. So I'm gonna have some follow up stuff on that over the next week or so. I don't think there's enough stories that can be written about that situation. And obviously, basketball is in a pivotal stretch, and both men play Mississippi State tomorrow night. Both those teams are not in great places right now, but that's always a big one. They got to get this thing back on track because it is not great right now. Women, obviously, like we talked about, are in a very big stretch. And then baseball starts today against Nevada. So I'll get to see Hunter Elliott take the field for the 75th year in a row. And
he got a year of eligibility.
I know. But yeah, so a lot of stuff going on right now, and spring ball will be here soon enough. So I won't be bored, that's for sure.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for stopping by. And thanks, everybody, for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. We're going to continue to talk about Trinidad and football and baseball and all of that stuff as this goes on. So make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you get all of the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels as well. So check that out as well. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, we're going to send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. That's pretty cool. Plus, on audio, make sure you get a second listen with Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Ole Miss got the decision they wanted in the Trinidad Chambliss case. Now we move on to the next step. What that is, well, we'll see. Hotty toddy, everybody.